goodness, I love it. I wish this camera was on like a... Well, you're not going to be able to see. Little cat running across the street. You can't see him. What I was about to say before I saw, a little wild kitty running around was probably approaching the halfway point of the diet. Probably nearing halfway. Considerably leaner than I was in the beginning, but not as lean as I want to start the bulk at. Because you got to remember the whole point of the dieting. I was about to say the dieting session. That doesn't sound right. The whole point of the dieting phase for me is to, fucking peel the fat off, right? The excess body fat, the tissue, the weight, which doesn't do anything good for me from the bulk. I want to get rid of that so that when I bulk again, I don't continually get, more and more and more, or higher and higher fat percentage, body fat percentage. Each bulk is kind of a similar, each bulk and cut is a similar gain and loss of body fat. But the only reason that I grow instead of just bouncing up and down weight-wise is because in the bulk phase, it's gaining muscle and fat. And the dieting phase, as long as I'm doing it reasonably well, it's mainly just losing fat. The muscle's not really peeling off yet. Which I'd say I'm probably in the clear on, because I'm not dieting that hard, and I'm not dieting to get that lean. Don't get too concerned about like adipose, or no, what am I saying, adipose, about like muscle atrophy and like, literally just fucking losing your gains from dieting down. Unless you're fucking insanely lean, then don't sweat it, man. If you're in a moderate deficit combined with cardio and you're still doing your consistent weight training, then you're fucking fine. Don't sweat it. And definitely don't get discouraged by the fact that it takes a little while. I wish I could get absolutely diced in 2 weeks, but not the case. It takes a little bit longer than that. So plan for today, back, potentially a little bit of rear delts, just for funsies at the end. But for me, I'm kind of spoiled. My shoulders are overly developed compared to everything else. Not like to the point where, I look like, I'm not fucking Frankie, right, from our favorite pirate crew. But my arms, my chest, I want those to catch up to my shoulders. So they're only a little ahead, but ahead enough to where I'm going to say, okay, let's chill out. None of this shoulder mumbo jumbo. Save shoulders for once every blue moon. So, like I've said this a million times, back, you can kind of hit it, however, as long as you're hitting it hard. I'm talking pull downs, pullovers, rows, combination of single arm, double arm stuff. Somebody commented he said specifically, for the beginner, when should I do double-sided movements and when should I do single-sided movements? So he's saying, when should I do a one-arm row versus, a double-arm row? Very good question. Very good question. Well, if you do an even mix, you're fine. You can do either. You could do all double-arm, you can do all single-arm. All single arm, I wouldn't have too much problem with, except it takes a little while. You're going to be doing your sets for twice as long, because instead of doing both sides at once, have to do one side on its own and then another side on its own. So time-wise, it may not be like, a baller fucking move. But in terms of muscular imbalances, like let's say your left lat is a touch fucking, ahead of your right one, then, if you throw some single-side set-ins, some single-sided sets in, hit failure on your right lat, the weak side, let's say you hit failure at 10 reps, then on your left side, the strong side, which is a little bit bigger, oh my goodness, when you do your set on the left side, just match the reps, even if it's not to failure, because then your weaker side will get a little bit more stimulus and be able to catch up to the stronger side. And that doesn't have to be with back. That can be fucking, any muscle group. whenever I do leg extension single leg, my left quad is a little bit smaller than the right one. So if I hit failure at 20 reps, or I do 10 good ones and then 10 partials on the left side, then I'm going to do the same thing on the right. It's still a hard set, but I hold back just a touch so that the left one can get a little more stimulus and the right one can, I don't want to say be held back, but it'll kind of gradually balance you out. And then speaking of muscular imbalances, don't freak too much, especially if you're a beginner. I'm talking like 2 years and under. That kind of shit will just balance out. And don't forget, you're the one who's the most hypersensitive to them. If your right lat is a touch smaller than your left one, you're the one who's like, oh crap, oh my back is so asymmetrical. Oh. Whereas somebody else looking at you, they're not gonna fucking notice. That's getting into some body dysmorphia type situations. So I had some single-sided stuff. Should help balance you out. But I think that's all I gotta say pre-lift. I can already feel my face tingling. Let's just throw some straps on and get started. No. 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 Yeah. All right. All right, I'm ready. Perfect. 3 more. Okay. That's perfect. Right now. 2, 3 more. 2. Okay. That's enough. Usually my mind would say, okay, you just finished some pull downs, now move on to some rows. So in the spirit of changing things up, I think I'll do a set or two of pullovers first. So not double arm. I've said this before, I'll repeat it. I don't love a double arm pullover. Something about holding onto this shit, both arms at once, I just, like the stretch is fine, but when I come down to really flex my lats at the bottom, it just doesn't do it for me. Getting back to the car, here's the fucking benefit where one arm beats double arm. I can just feel it better, So if you can squeeze your biceps harder doing a single arm sided curl instead of both at once, then for a couple sets on your arm day, I'd throw in some single sided stuff. But 5 reps on the right side, 5 on the left, go back and forth until I'm done, and probably repeat. I think probably 2. But if I feel like I've done enough on one or I don't really love how it feels, just do the one and done method. No. Yeah. 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 Yeah, okay, one more. Okay. Okay. One more. Yeah. 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 Oh. Shit. Yeah, one more. Yay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now let's do some rows. I was strongly considering just trying to throw the whole stack around for a set, but instead, I'm going to just stay at this weight and really try to squeeze. I feel like, I can do a lot of damage with a heavy set, and I do like them, and I do get pumped. But towards the end of a workout, back especially, some of the lighter squeezing sets usually pump me up a little bit more than trying to move around as much weight as possible. And also, after a feeler rep of this weight, it just felt right. No need to get more complicated than that. Okay, that's nasty. Just make a drop set. Okay. Fuck this. Let's do some machine rows instead. Good set, but I don't want to repeat it. Now this will be a nastier set. Okay. Another benefit of the machines, it's much easier to burn out with partials. Like for me to sit on like a bench over dumbbell row and get just barely any reps, I feel like I use so much bicep and forearm. Whereas on a machine where the movement path is like lots, all I have to focus on is pulling my scapula together. One more similar style. Time to go as nuts as possible. Another benefit that I like about doing the machines, like a chest supported row, is there's no cheating. On those seated cable rows, I could do a certain amount of reps and then start using some swing to pump out a few more, which I do like in that context. But with some machines, I kind of like the fact that you can't swing, just because you can hit what would be maybe a little bit more accurate to call failure. Because the only thing working to move this weight, apart from my biceps and forearms a little, is my back. But let's go nuts. All right. Actually, I'll do some tempo reps in the beginning. Let's drop the weight. Okay. Let's go back to pull downs. Just to the pull downs, much lighter, much more squeezing focused, and a wider grip. Not that I think wider is better, but wider is different. And I want to hit my lats in a slightly different way since I've already done pull downs. Okay. I think one more superset involving pull downs. Back is done. I have a plan. And that plan is as follows. One set of pullovers, what I'm talking about. One set of seated rows, and then jump straight over to the pull down and bunch. I just try to combine the word burst and bust in the same word. Or set of rows and set of pullovers. This will be good. And if you're doing your last set of the workout, man up. Come on, go hard. Okay. Okay. We're fully pumped. Let's go pose down. All right, back, done. Literally like I fucking predicted. Pull downs, rows, pullovers. And guess what? Try to go as hard as I could in each set with a variety of styles. A few of those sets were as heavy as I could pretty much go. Got some assisted reps, did some drop sets, a little bit of superset at the end. I fucking pretty much pulled out every trick in the book for back today. And guess what? The pump is going to show it. Without even having to see it, without even knowing what's underneath this flannel, I know for a fact, well, why describe it? Why describe it when we can just take a fucking look? Oh, goodness. Actually, I lied to you. I did one set I didn't record. In between those last two sets of the pull downs and then the rows to pull downs, I grabbed the 45s and did one set of like 15 reps of shrugs. Not necessarily, that kind of brings me into a good point. I never do any direct trap training, at least not that I show. So how about I talk about trap training after the pose down? You gotta remember, my pump is fleeting. As soon as you're fully pumped, it begins to fade. So let's flex first, talk second. That's a pretty solid approach to fucking anything, in my opinion. Woo. Actually, fuck. There we go. Now I can actually see the fucking traps. Let's pull this down just a touch more to really get the full lats out. Oof. We're getting some fucking demon back action. Oh. Oh my goodness. Let's see, what else is there? Oh man. I mean, even just like, not even doing a direct flex, but just flexing my back with the triceps as well. Oof. Nice. Let's get a side tricep in here too. We'll just run through every upper body pose there is. I like it. I like it. Uh, Oh yeah, kind of an Arnoldy looking. That's probably enough. So when it comes to direct trap work, I would say, you know, do it when necessary. I mean, right now my traps are pumped up, and I mean, look at me. I'm a fucking flexing them specifically. I look like a fucking meathead. The only reason I really threw them in is because since I'm dieting, none of the muscles that I'm training are growing. I'm not growing my back from this workout. I'm maintaining the size I've already built and my strength, but I'm not growing. So, dieting, I don't mind hitting my stronger muscles because I know they're not going to get any more overdeveloped. So, a little trap pump, kind of just for fun. But I used to train traps all the fucking time. You know, pretty much every back workout had some traps in it. Usually, kind of mid workout, I want to finish back day with pretty much a complete back pump. So if I started off with a lot of lats, you know, a lot of pull downs, a lot of pullovers, I'd probably do like 2 sets of heavy shrugs right in the middle and then move on to rows. But I don't think you need a ton of direct trap work unless you really need your traps to grow if they're seriously behind. Just from doing any kind of, you know, chest supported or, you know, free weight where you're even leaning a little bit further back than 90 degrees. Any rowing where you're hitting your, you know, upper mid back, your traps are going to get worked. So I don't think traps always need the most direct work. But if you do need to hit them, nothing beats shrugs, you know. Single arm, double arm, barbell with a cable. A little superset I like to do, or I liked to do when I would hit traps directly, is I would do a normal set of, you know, straight bar cable rows. And then at the end of the set, once I was fatigued and pretty much hit failure, I would just lean back so that I'm doing shrugs with the weight from the cable. That's a pretty easy way to add them in. But I'm more concerned about really wrecking my lats and mid traps, because that's what's going to add overall width and thickness to your back. Massive traps, I mean, massive anything is cool, but if I had to pick the most important muscle groups on my back in order, I'd say probably lats first, of course, followed by mid traps, you know, rhomboids, teres major action. That's that fancy shit that looks like the eyes right on the inside of my rear delts. And then, honestly, traps are last. Because with some muscle groups, it is kind of a game of fucking illusions. Because sure, maybe you don't have the biggest traps ever, but then that makes your shoulders look even broader. You know, if your traps are too big, if your traps get too developed, you kind of lose the Dorito shape when you're standing up, and you kind of get more of a rounded over look, which from the back is pretty cool. But from the front, it's almost like massive traps, at least traps that are out of proportion, makes you look maybe a little smaller. You know, it takes away from that width that your shoulders should bring to the upper corners of your torso. But mass is mass, so everybody wants bigger. You know, I want bigger everything. That's not even a question. So plan now. Just get in the car, go home. No rear delts, they don't need any work. Go eat something. All right, so I was actually about to try to get into a little speech about like fucking self-confidence and stuff, but I thought of something else that's, I think, a little bit more important and also relates to me a little bit more. And I'm not exactly sure the best way to get into it, but you know, if you want to get good at something, if you want to be able to do something and really at least, I mean, all I know is the fucking working out. That's my whole deal. That's everything I talk about. But it applies to anything. You know, if for whatever reason I wanted to become a fucking, I don't know, if I wanted to be a high-level motocross racer, I'd probably say the same shit. I'd be like, yeah, fucking, I just got the new Honda CRZ. Fucking, I don't know. I'd talk about it like a nut. But when it comes to the lifting, which to some this may be an unfortunate aspect of it, but a lot of the shit that you're doing, and even just kind of in life, you're sort of going to be alone for most of it. And I don't mean like you're not going to have any buddies or whatever else, but the majority of any sort of grinding that anybody gets done, it's typically solo, So as much as I like, having all my buddies around me at the gym when I'm working out and having a crew, and there is an actual benefit to having your dogs in the gym with you, because you can have guys you're comfortable with and ask them for spots. You'll actually have a better workout, like with those assisted reps. I had my buddy Russ helping me out, or Roos. So there is a benefit, of course, but I think for some, that is a really important part of their training. You came to the gym with the same kind of attitude that you had from maybe your high school football lifts, where it wasn't just you. I've kind of said this before, but I'll get into it again. You had a whole crew of like 20 dudes there with you. If you've ever seen the high school football or the college football, it could be any sport, but their training clips, when they're doing like a 1 rep max or like an AMRAP set, and one dog's hitting it and he's going as fucking hard as he can, and he's got 25 guys around him fucking screaming, hyping him up. That's powerful. It's very energizing to have people trying to push you like that. But I think in a way it can also become a crutch, because guys who came up like that in the gym, if you were a high school dude or a college, football player, whatever, I don't mean to keep saying football, like if you were a wrestler, you went through the same shit. But if that was your upbringing, and then now you're off on your own in the world, you're doing your solo workouts, you don't have a whole crew to fucking scream at you who want to see you do better, and it's just you could be missing out on a little bit of motivation, because that's what you've become kind of accustomed to, right? So what I'm kind of getting into is you've got to be able to push it when nobody's watching. You got to be able to really dig deep purely for its own sake and for the satisfaction that it's going to give you, because when I'm doing my home lifts, I said this speech a few months ago, and now I get to say the exact same point. I'm a little spoiled now because I'm never really lifting alone, because you guys are always checking in, making sure I'm pushing it. So in a way, I've always got a little bit of extra motivation to go hard. Like, I want to go hard, of course. Like, I think I'd still be lifting hard if it were just me. But I think subconsciously, the fact that I do record all these lifts, it probably does aid in my intensity, because I know people are watching. But for the most part, you got to remember, that was only recently. That was only this last year and a half. Before then there was 1,000 workouts basically. 4 years of fucking workouts solo. Sometimes not even in a gym with people, just at home in the basement, right, with just music or whatever else going. So if you can become satisfied by pushing yourself and knowing okay, in your mind, not thinking, okay, I want to do a set as hard as so-and-so, or I want to show so-and-so that I can do this. If you can sort of rewire your brain a little bit to okay, I want to see how hard I can go. That's why I really love, as of late, my progressive overload, it's kind of stagnated, because to an extent, there's no point in, I'm never going to do a set of 100-pound dumbbell curls. At least probably not, With some movements, bodybuilding style, there's just no need to go that heavy. So with a lot of movements, I think weight-wise, I'm kind of maxed out. I'm using as much weight as necessary. Sometimes a little too much. But squats, that's the one lift where I really push it. and I can actually make pretty tangible, lift to lift gains when bulking, of course. Dieting down, it's pretty consistently just the same rep schemes and whatever else. But that is a really fucking cool feeling to, take the weight off the bar. I've got literally getting up into the 500 pounds range. And I'm like, okay, I've never done this weight for 10 before. I've only ever done this for 8. And some of these lifts, especially if I do them late, there's no one watching. The gym is fucking dead. It's just me with this fucking, 5 plates and like a 25. There's nothing stopping me from saying, okay, I can't do this. This is going to be too heavy. I'm too nervous, and putting it down. But to kind of fight through that and actually do a set where, I'm at that 8 rep mark, like as much weight and reps as I've ever done, and push it a little further and get that 10 reps, do one more and then be like, okay, I don't know if I can make this last one, but I need to try it, right? So stuff like that. And I'm not talking about the weight itself. Like a weight PR and a rep PR is cool, but what's more important, bodybuilding wise, if you're a power lifter, it's very different. But what I find is much more important is the intensity. So for me, I like my lifts to reach a level of intensity that at the very least I'm satisfied with. Like today's back day, given that I'm dieting down, I'm satisfied with that intensity. That was enough to be a productive lift. I'm in the green zone, right? Satisfactory. But the lifts where I push it and everything's in line, I got a crazy amount of sleep. I'm super well hydrated, very well fed. And that well fed, usually these crazy lifts are on, bulking days. But sometimes I'll have a really nuts one when I'm dieting down too. And I mean extra nuts compared to my normal baseline. But the lifts where I push it to the point where it almost surprises me. Like, when you're doing a set of lateral raises or a set of dumbbell curls or push downs or, pec flies, and you hit rep 20 and you're like, okay, that's probably enough. And then you push yourself through just another 5 or however many more to the point where you've actually hit your physical limit and not just your mental limit that you've got kind of ingrained in yourself. It's just a nuts feeling, man. But again, back to kind of what I was saying, is if you can be wired in such a way that the action of just pushing yourself is what gives you satisfaction, then, there's no fucking limit on how far you're going to go, man. If all these videos just totally disappeared, or if I never even made them in the first place, I would still be fucking going nuts just because I'm wired to, try to become as much of a freak as possible. So, just something to think about, because the characters, the dudes who only push themselves when they have other people watching and cheering them on, it's a little bit of a crutch, man. Because what happens when that disappears? What happens when you got to go to the gym and nobody's there, right? What happens when, we've all heard the classic tropes. What happens when your gym bro stops going to the gym with you, or he switched gyms, or he stops lifting with you, or you just have like a falling out, and that was like a big source of your internal motivation, or your external motivation rather, right? So what I'm trying to say is, don't be afraid to, actually that's not even, afraid isn't even the right word. I think what I mean to say is, if you can try to make sure that the lifts that you do alone get you as amped up as ones where you have a crew with you, the better, because you're not always going to have your dogs with you, right? So the more you can perform when no one's watching, the more you can perform in the shadows and, stick to your routine and fucking, make sure that, I don't have another phrase to say, but it's the shit that nobody sees which actually makes you fucking huge or get better at things, like how many videos are there of it's not always the best reference to use, like top 0.001 percenters as an example. But the fact that they're outliers, you know, they're there for a reason, you know. But how many videos are there posted of like a fucking LeBron James or a Kevin Durant? How many videos are there of them in the gym for 4 hours a day or more, just fucking shooting threes back to back? You know, every one of those wasn't recorded, right? All the thousands, I mean, probably tens of thousands of hours that they spent practicing. That's not what gets, you know, hyped up. You know, it's the performance that they put on afterwards. So don't get too attached to that end scenario. You know, if you can enjoy the process of practicing something and improving at it, then the results will just come in like nothing. You know, like for me, I have fun just coming to the gym and going hard. And then, you know, I don't have, I mean, at this point, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that I'm going to continue to progress, that I'm going to continue to grow and get bigger, you know, in a bodybuilding context, get more competitive, just literally turn into a freak. Because I know that there is, I mean, I'm not asking for trouble, you know, from the universe, knock on wood, but I can't think of a single thing that could stop me from keeping these lifts and the diets and everything else up for indefinitely, you know. And that's just because I enjoy it. It's not even it's like when I see videos where it's talking about like the struggle of training, you know, and like you've got the discipline of training and the fucking, you know, and the sacrifices of training. It's like I get it. I get hyped up by that, you know, because that is true. You do have to kind of do this all in a way, you know. It's going to affect a lot of your life, your schedule, your sleep, your diet. You got to be, I mean, at the gym at certain times every day, back to back to back. But that's, I mean, that's the fun part, man, you know. That's the coolest part, right? So maybe that's just because I'm wired like that. So if that's not you, if you're not wired to love the training and get into the dieting and everything else, then yeah, you're probably going to have a hard time, you know. But for whatever reason, from my perspective, I mean, it's all fucking fun, you know. Eat hard, sleep hard, train hard, get pumped up to shit, have veins pop out of everywhere. I mean, what's not to like, you know? So I think what I'm trying to say is if you can somehow try to rewire your brain to get really fucking excited about the day by day, you know, activities that go along with a long-term endeavor, the better, you know. The guys who love waking up every morning to run their own fucking business or, you know, to do whatever, when they're excited to do it every day, it's not a question of whether or not they're going to get to where they want to be. It may be a question of how long it's going to take, you know, just from luck-based factors like fucking genetics and whatever else. But, you know, for people like that who can get excited day after day after day, you know, to no end, there really is no question about the fact that they're going to fucking kill it. Not in the long run, for sure. So that's my finishing statement on my little hype up speech. So if that's you, if you know you've been slacking a little bit, it is never too late. It is never fucking too late to lock in. You know, oh man, that's just oh, well, I've kind of been, I've been fucking off for a few months. It's never too late. Absolutely never. Never too late to get a 315 bench for reps. So, enough hype. I gotta go home and eat and do some more homework and get a good night's rest. So I will see you tomorrow for, oh my goodness, for arms. I'm already getting fucking excited.